Friday, and welcome back to Admit One. I'm your host, Jonathan Kubiak. We will be completing our two-part series on the University of Southern California with an interview with Chloe Hirth, a current senior, dually enrolled in a political science undergraduate and communications major and master's program. Now for today's big number, 16,000. This is the number of courses that the University of Toronto, the largest university in Canada, will offer this fall. School officials recently announced that about 55% of these will feature in-person instruction. The leader of Yale's Brady Johnson program in Grand Strategy, a prestigious public policy curriculum, resigns, citing, quote, inappropriate attempts by donors to influence curriculum and a failure of the university to, quote, stand up for academic freedom. Historian Page, who has run the program since 2017, said, quote, this is not a pay-to-play institution, end quote, in response to prominent right-wing donors who sought to establish an advisory board in order to oversee the program's curriculum. Recently published an article that refers to AP courses as, quote, a racket, end quote. In the piece, Dr. Peter Gray, PhD, asserts that, quote, advanced placement courses harm students and enrich College Board executives, end quote. Dr. Gray goes on to cite research from a Stanford-based think tank that finds diminishing evidence that AP curriculum enhances a student's chance of getting into college. That the psychological, social, and academic costs associated with AP-heavy curriculum generally outweighs any perceived benefits of taking these classes. California, our featured university, recently announced that it will be amending its vastly unpopular, quote, no guest policy as coronavirus cases continue to decline in the area. Students living in university housing will now be allowed up to 2 guests so long as these guests are also enrolled in the university. We are going to take a quick break and then be right back with Chloe Hirth. Welcome back to Admit One. We are lucky enough to be joined by Miss Chloe Hirth today, who is calling in from USC's beautiful campus. Now, Chloe, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what it is that you're studying at USC and what led you to kind of come into that field.
Yeah, of course. So I'm studying political science and communications on the pre-law track, but I just started a progressive degree in public policy, so I'm doing my master's right now as well. And then I'm originally from Illinois, so I kind of just found USC out of chance and ended up here. But yeah, so now I'm a senior.
Backtrack a little bit. So that's a whole lot of things all at once. How are you balancing undergrad and a master's and multiple majors all at once?
The honest answer is Google Calendar, but I will say USC has done a great job of being really helpful, whether it's advisement or student resources. So that's really helped me stay on track. Coming into college, didn't think I'd be prepared to do so much, but USC's been really accommodating and really helpful, whether it's offering so many programs and offering advisement, things like that. So I'm on track, thankfully. But yeah.
When you were applying to schools as a high schooler, were you always kind of considering that type of poli-sci with a eventual master's focus, or were you thinking more law school or anything else that really kind of was on your plate while you were considering what schools to choose from?
I will say I wasn't completely sure for most of high school what I wanted to do. I was always drawn to the more kind of history, humanities, like more social sciences side of academics. So I always kind of had to focus on that. I wasn't sure where that would necessarily take me. And I initially applied to USC as a psychology major. So I was kind of in between that and political science, but I ended up kind of deciding a more clear path after taking AP Gov in high school and really enjoying that. So I switched my major to political science once I was admitted. And then as I kind of have just continued on in college and like gotten to know more like USC professors, whether in like the Gold School of Law or like within Dornsife, I definitely found myself more interested to a more practical side of law, theory, and policy. So that's really what I'm focused on right now.
Interesting. outside of the classroom to kind of supplement all of those academic experiences? I know you mentioned that you've been networking with professors. Are they kind of helping you get set up in the professional world in those fields as well, or is it more academic rigor that is helping you through?
I will say it's a bit of both. Being at USC, a lot of the coursework is pretty practical, so that has definitely helped me within the classroom. But especially this past year, well, not this past year, this past semester, as I've started my graduate program, I've gotten a lot more hands-on instruction in my master's courses, which has been really helpful. But beyond the classroom, I've also found a lot of support and guidance within professors, whether it's through extracurriculars or advisement. But I would say the best way to kind of get to know career pathways is through talking to professors. So advisements definitely helped me in more of an academic, practical, organizational sense, but talking to teachers and like people that have been in the field has definitely been the most helpful.
Of having professors who have been there, done that, and worked in the fields that you're interested in getting into, is that kind of relegated only to your poli-sci classes? Does that extend into your comm curriculum as well? Is that only at the master's level, or is it pretty ubiquitous all throughout?
I'd say it's pretty even throughout. I think my master's courses, I've noticed, though, kind of come with a lot more perspectives from the teachers, because some of my teachers teach for undergrad as well, but kind of some of the experiences I've had in my master's courses are not only enriched by my professors' experiences, but also my peers and my fellow students in the program. Like, for example, I'm in classes with a lot of people who are further advanced in their point of life. Like, they've had past careers and are kind of transitioning, or maybe they worked and are coming back or starting something new. So I think my course discussions are a lot more enriched by that experience. So I guess it gives the teachers a lot more to work with and a lot more diversity in experiences and things like that, and like career goals. So I would say both, but I think my master's courses have been a little bit different in the sense of like people are at so many different stages of life, which is really cool.
About how the extracurriculars that you are involved in also supplement that educational you're getting from all angles. Could you speak a little bit more about exactly what extracurriculars those are and how they are helping you so much as you prepare to transition to the professional world?
Absolutely. So I would say first and foremost, since I was a freshman at USC, I got really involved in a corporate law organization. So it focuses on business, corporate law, but it's really open to anyone who's kind of interested in learning about the legal field. So my specific role in that was connecting professors to students via workshops that were more kind of like supplemental to the like typical course meeting. So I've organized things from entertainment law to tax law to legal writing workshops. So that's given me a good chance to get to know really a lot of professors, a lot of students in a lot of different fields. And then beyond that, I've also gotten involved in Unruh Associates, which is a bipartisan political organization on campus. So through that, I've gotten to know a lot of students, gotten to know a lot about politics and even a lot more resources on campus and things like that. And then from a different lens, I've also done more social organizations like SPEC, which is a fashion cultural club. So I've done I've done social responsibility stuff for that. And then I've also been really involved in my sorority, which has given me kind of a bigger perspective of USC as a whole, since there are so many students in a lot of different career paths or interests and things like that. So yeah, kind of a lot.
All at once. How does that compare to the type of extracurriculars that you were involved in high school? And how did those, if they did get you prepared for college, how did those compare?
I would say my high school extracurriculars were similar in a lot of ways. I did a program called Ambassadors, which was kind of like coordinating events for the school and also connecting students and alums and things like that. And I do something similar now with Dornsife. So in that sense, that set me up. And then I did things like sports, which I think helped me a lot for my sorority and things like my cultural club, because there are so many people in different like paths or interests, but all coming together for one similar or one common goal. So I will say like my high school extracurriculars definitely set me up a lot. I also did things like diversity club or like honor society, stuff like that.
Tell your high school self to do instead that you think would have prepared you better for USC or for college in general?
I think high school is really about finding the first step of your interest. I think like it's really helpful to figure out what you don't want to do. So like in high school, I figured out maybe math and science were my strong suits, or I wasn't as passionate about the medical field or things like that. But I feel like college is really where you find yourself, and it's a great place to push yourself out of your boundaries because you're not in your hometown anymore. There aren't as many people that you grew up with. You're not as like tied down to whatever you once were. So I think it gives you a lot of freedom to maybe pursue what you already know you're interested in or try things that are new. So I think it's a bit of both. I'd say high school is really beneficial to figure out what you don't want. So you're not wasting time in college when it's a lot more serious. And I feel like college is really just about reaffirming what you want to do and finding yourself and your people.
You came into USC as a psychology major and have subsequently switched. If it wasn't so much rooted in, the academic aspect of the school, what was it about USC that really drew you here and made you feel comfortable calling this place home?
So I actually did a program at USC in high school for psychology, so that really drew me further into the interest of the academia. But I also will say, just coming to visit campus and spending that time on campus, I think there's something special about the spirit of USC. Like, I visited other schools and students may have looked happy to be there, may have looked engaged in just like the normal college life. But I will say USC, I noticed something special about how students interacted. Students wearing USC merchandise, USC students saying things like "fight on" when they see each other, and it wasn't just something that was like staged on like a college tour. It was something that I was just walking around and I noticed and experienced. I think there was just a really good energy here, and one thing I found out pretty quickly is that USC students are really diverse in the sense of everyone's interested in something and motivated to do something or change something or create something, regardless of what that is. So I think that's really special as well.
Anything in particular off the top of your head that you think USC really could do better, or something that you really wish, had gone differently in your personal experience there?
I think I'm biased because I am really well connected to the university via like extracurriculars or just like staff connections and things like that I've gained just from getting involved. So I know a lot about what is available on campus and have taken advantage of that. But I think USC could do a better job of publicizing all the resources that are there. Like there are so many centers or programs, whether it's internships, research, scholarships, funding, that I feel like a lot of students don't know about. And it'd be really beneficial, I think, for a lot more people if they were publicized more effectively and creatively, just so more students know. Like, I talk to freshmen and I'm like, oh, you should do this, you should go to this school, or like, you should go to this spot on campus. And they're like, oh, I never heard about this. I never would have thought about this. I think it can really change the trajectory of someone's college experience.
Out of time, but before you go, I wanted to ask if there was one piece of general advice that you could give to all of those out there who are finishing up the final touches on their USC applications, and whether it's their dream school, whether it's further down the list, what would you say to those students today that they should do in order to get in?
I would say that's hard. I think my biggest thing is being open. So whether it's like you're writing your college application and you're not sure what to say, I think be yourself. USC is really looking for that. And then if you are accepted and you decide to attend USC, I think there are so many opportunities and you should really come in with as little expectations as possible and just really focus on getting to know yourself, getting to know what your interests are and things like that. I know a lot of students come in and are like, I'm going to be pre-med, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, just as an example, and then end up doing something else and are like, oh my gosh, I'm completely failing. So I think giving yourself grace and just being open to trying new things and maybe becoming a new person or like a different person is really important, and also just natural. So that would be my advice.
Very poetic way to end this. And Chloe, thank you so much for joining us today and for all of your wise words. And as always, fight on.
Fight on.